Travelator Hater. Kev is the first person that I have agreed with on this whole Punk situation as far as mental health goes. In the same breath, could we also compare it to Kevin's backstage situation with Joe working himself into a shoot? What are your guys' thoughts? One final thing, Tony Khan's in fear for his life, but how many concussions, broken necks, and botched table spots have we seen that Tony is directly responsible for? And of course, I have to add love. You and Kev love the show. Okay, so a few things there. You did say last week the big news beyond this show was that Kevin was the first person I saw that said Punk would be fired. And I
actually said he had to be.
Yes. And I kind of took issue and said, well, no, he doesn't. It was a little dust up backstage, which happens with the boys, right? Happens with the boys?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I've had 2 incidents backstage in my career. I've heard of Booker T and Batista. I watched Goldberg and Jericho, and that's basically all I've ever seen in 30 years. So, and there was a couple people that said, "Oh, well, you know, you're a hypocrite because, you know, you've had altercations." Okay, number one, I never had an altercation with anyone that wasn't finished working for the evening as a 1099. I in no way affected the match. I in no way affected the programming. What I did was, and when I went back, the first one was Piper. I went back there because we specifically told them it was Rick and Piper versus me and Scott. I specifically, before the match, Scott and I said, whatever we do, let's not start this hot. We'll have nowhere to go. Rick, the pro that he is, we go down there and boom, Piper comes roaring at us. Well, now Rick's got his dick in his hand if he doesn't jump into it. But Rick was absolutely cool. And so, because no matter, we were so much bigger than they were that you had to, but Rick and Scott could start, and because Rick is an unbelievable hand as far as wrestling. And so was Scott. But Rick was also had the ability to, you could drop him behind you, he could take your knee out, and then he could work your leg for a guy like me. Plus, Rick always could thumb you, kick you in the front of the knee. He had offense. His punches looked good. At that point of Roddy's career, he wasn't that. He just wasn't that good of a worker. He didn't have a lot of offense, not to take down a 270 and a 310-pound guy. It just wasn't going to happen. And so I was so pissed because the match was so poor. And we're in Boston. We're leaving Boston to take this, shit show to Moline, the old Quad Cities. We can't shit the bed in Moline. Let's shit it in fucking Boston.
Boston.
Fuck.
So what do you do out there? Let's not get into the locker room yet. So you see what's happening now, right? You're in the ring. You're like, okay.
So Piper's not selling. So finally, I just bent him over. I grabbed him by his neck and bent him over and just started rifling as hard as I could with my forearm across the back of his shoulders, that's wrestling 101. That's what Stan Hansen would have done. That's what anybody would have done. That's a wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, hey, dude, like, you need to sell If you're not going to, it's like when we had the match with me and Bill. Bill isn't going to sell, so I clothesline him and knock him down. Like, okay, if you're not going to sell, then I'll make you sell.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to hit you in the face. I'm a professional wrestler that was trained by Jody Hamilton. You never hit in the T-zone on anybody in this business. That goes in the back as much as it does in the ring.
Mm.
So we get through this shit show, and I stormed to their locker room. And I said, what the fuck? And Piper got up and charged at me like he was going to single leg me or do something. And I open hand smacked him to the side of his face. I did not strike him with a fist.
Did he say anything when he was coming at you?
No. And I just think that he had sold Wolf tickets for so fucking long. It's like you know how you buy tickets, and I don't know. I lived in Europe for years. You'd have a ticket on the train. Nobody'd ever come and punch the fucking thing. You know.
So you're saying he got by on a reputation that he was a boxer and a street kid,
and he might have been a badass, but he just, you know, time. It's like if some guy runs his mouth at me at a gas station at 11:30 at night, and he's 5'10" and weighs 170 pounds, I'm figuring minimum this guy's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. And the last thing I want to do is fucking have this guy pounding me into submission, because all you got to do is grab any of my limbs, and I'm so fucking beat up. It's just like, okay, I'm tapping. What, you're not going to give me a tap here in the parking lot? So that's why I now fucking carry a fucking firearm. So if you decide you want to fucking do a single leg on me, then I'm going to shoot you in the fucking top of the head.
Well, you can in your state now. So
well,
I guess.
I think it's a law if you don't. I think it's against the law if you don't. So that incident didn't hit him in the T-zone, did not strike him with a fucking fist, and it was over with one smack.
So
I think it's a law if you don't. I think it's against the law if you don't. So that incident didn't hit him in the T-zone, did not strike him with a fucking fist, and it was over with one smack. I think it's a law if you don't. I think it's against the law if you don't. So that incident didn't hit him in the T-zone, did not strike him with a fucking fist, and it was over with one smack.